Hello, friends. Hello, folks, as Sonia has been coaching me to say. So hard to know about titles for people. Let's see, what time is it? Oh, it's 5:02, so no wonder people were wondering about me. Normally here earlier. I'm on my own today, and probably if not for the dog having come in and nudging my elbow a little bit ago, I would not have realized how much time had gone by since I sat down, and that it was time to quit messing around, Janet, and just put something together. Sometimes that's the way it is. Are there any questions today for our 83rd, whatever we call these, Free-for-All Fridays? Oh, there's a hand. Therese, hello, Therese. I'm so sorry that we missed you at book club.
Ooh, I don't know. I could not seem to get the Zoom link to work, but
Yeah, we blew it on that one. It was interesting though, when a couple people, there were enough people there that I thought, oh, there's people here, so it's all right. But then afterwards realized that the link was again wrong. And some people said, well, it took me to book club meeting number 3. I said, it took you to an old meeting. So that's interesting. Wonder if I didn't even know that those meetings still existed after the date that we set them up for. If they still exist, is that kind of like going back in time? Could we go back to old meetings? That would be
I love it.
interesting to do, wouldn't it? I know. I can see a science fiction story starting. But anyway, Teresa, you raised your hand
Well,
and I
real
took
quick.
your time.
Real quick, what is the new book?
Oh, it is The Forbidden Garden by Simon Parkin, Parkin. It's a true story of the work done and the saving of the seed storage bank in Leningrad during World War II.
Very cool. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is this: a friend of mine ordered like 3 yards of mulch,
Uh-huh.
and she had ordered like a peat mulch, but and she threw the 3 yards into her garden, but then um as it's rained and the garden's been watered, this mulch is actually big chunks of wood. It's not like a woody fines.
Oh man.
So would she do well to add nitrogen to the soil because it's going to leach nitrogen as it decomposes? What do you
Um,
suggest?
it may help to do that, to keep it wetter and to add a nitrogen source, preferably a slow release nitrogen source, so that because it's going to take a while for those wood chunks to break down. I mean, they are going to be there for a while. It might take some raking in the fall to get them off into less obtrusive areas. Oh, that's too bad. But
Yeah,
there's
I know
just
she
yeah, there's just
and,
no.
and And they made it right. The company made it right. They actually did not, they refunded her entire purchase, and told her that it would break down and we'd be better by next year. But I was just wondering about the nitrogen. So I will tell her to keep it wet as possible, maybe rake it around a little bit.
Yeah. The more that
Okay.
the more that you can have different surfaces exposed to the nitrogen source and the water, the quicker they will break down. Oh, that's really too bad. And yeah, it's good that they made it right and they
Yep.
refunded her money,
Yep.
but that does not all that time to put it down and now to look at it and have it not be right. So
Yeah. And it's,
disappointing.
yeah, it's less the aesthetics, more like big chunks of wood in her garden, but that's
Yeah,
okay. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And we'll start officially with welcome to Free for All Friday. Everybody's welcome. We celebrate growing, we cultivate problem solving, and this is our 83rd time to meet on Friday evening to look at what's happened this week and maybe what's coming up next week. It's July 24th, the dog days of summer in 2026. This is gardenataz.org bringing this to you. I'm Janet McConovich. Stephen Nicola is not with me. He and the grandkids and Sonia are in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, probably just about now pulling into Oscar outside of Houghton, where Steve's family is from generations back. they will spend the week with Stephen teaching them the grandkids things to do that he did when he went up there, because he would spend every summer of his childhood up at family places up there. And Sonia has joined him and us up there a couple of times, and she's up there now. She will doubtless be taking the kids to places that I wouldn't, and having them jumping off cliffs into Lake Superior, where I would go, don't do that. And so that's good for them. I've normally been with them, but we have an old dog. We have two dogs, and one of them is we always have a senior and a younger. And our 15-year-old lab is at a point in her old age that really can't leave her with somebody else. The things that we're doing for her, can't ask other people to do. So I am here on my own. Steve might break in since they're pulling into Oscar, but I doubt that they will. I told them not to worry about it, because I can handle it. We handle our website pretty well, one or the other of us. It helps if one or the other of us is checking the other one's work, but we handle it pretty well most of the time. I just realized I don't have my glasses. I don't need them at my desk, but I know I look different without my glasses, so excuse me for looking different. The website, I almost went into the website for tonight. I said I haven't been in the garden much this week. I've mostly been cooking meals to freeze and send up north, and helping stuff like that. And I thought I should go back through the other things that we've published at the end of July and see what issues there are there. And I decided, no, people can do that. That's why we put everything up there. You can simply go to What's Up, and when they click on What's Up, they'll come to a page that has a sub-menu. That sub-menu says issues. Shoot, I forgot what the exact wording is, but at the very bottom of the menu, it lets you go to issues, where you can choose late summer, early summer. We're in summer right now, and you can choose summer and read any number, probably about 25 magazines that are in there. Yeah, this is what it takes you to, is early spring, summer. But at any rate, we'll worry about that later. And we have our Fridays arranged that same way. I am hoping that this group has some questions today. Might be a short show otherwise, because I have not been out very much and have been walking around just a little bit to look and see what's up. And I've not been much motivated and inspired by the things that are out there. It's very dry in our garden right now. We didn't catch any of the rain that came after the smoke, or very little of it. And we're in a very dry garden, so things are crinkled up. It's interesting, though, to look at Camacea's long gone. That's a spring bloomer that you're looking at on the screen. But in the garden, it's interesting to look at a lot of the natives that we have. And most of them we picked for growing in a dry, sandy area like we're at right now. But we have some that I put in there just because, well, we're attached to them, and that's part of our garden, and we'll take care of it a little bit better. And standing right next to each other is a cup plant. This is a huge, it's easily 10 feet tall, sunflower relative that has leaves that cup the stem so that water sits in them, and they call that cup plant. Birds will drink out of there. Toads will sometimes sit in there and drink out of there. That cup plant is absolutely glorious. It's the best that it's ever looked since we've been here, probably because its roots have gotten way down deep. It's not a bit wilted, but immediately right next to it is a bunch of turtlehead and Queen of the Prairie and Joe Pye. And those guys are wilted. They're showing not a bit of water left in their leaves. They've just folded them down, which is a defense mechanism for most of the plants, certainly for native plants. If it's too hot and too dry, since they lose water through the underside of the leaf, they pull air in through the stomata on underside of the leaf. And after they break apart the water molecule to get the hydrogen and the oxygen out to combine with the carbon, then they take out the carbon and the oxygen. They take out the carbon and the oxygen, and they use those and rearrange them to make sugars and starches to feed the rest of the plant. What's left, the water that's left in what they've taken in, and the gases that have taken in, come back out through those stomata. And when it gets really dry and hot, they lose so much moisture through those stomata that the plant is forced to close them. So they close these openings in order to not let not lose any more water. What that does is it prevents them from taking water in. So they are essentially in stasis. They're not photosynthesizing, they're not growing, they're not developing, they're just existing when they've got those leaves folded down. But while the leaves are folded down with the stomata closed like that, they're not up sunbathing and getting even hotter. So it's a defense mechanism, but it's striking to look at this group of plants totally folded up and the ones right next to them standing just wonderfully. If you were to water them, we don't water. We look the other way and say, boy, this is interesting, and I know you guys will be fine. If you do water, it cools the air around the plant, and the plant will open the stomata and lift its leaves back up again. Once you stop watering, if there was not enough water put in the soil and enough to get the plant thoroughly moistened, the plant's going to end up losing water again. So it's not always a good idea to wake them up in that unless you can wake them up all the way. It is interesting, though. Boy, I should have gone on.
Janet?
Yeah.
Janet, I'm sorry to interrupt. So I'm seeing a kiwi plant. I
Yes.
think it's a kiwi, right? But
It
you
is.
were
It's a
talking
kiwi.
about a cup plant, and I never saw the cup plant.
And that's because I don't have a picture of the cup plant here.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I missed that. My
No,
apologies.
thank you
Sorry.
very much for asking, because I know I'm going to run off here. Normally, Steve and I look at our pictures, agree on what pictures, or most of the pictures. We put them in, and then I organize them. I put little marker things in there so I can remember that here's where we're going to talk about cup plant, and here's where we're going to talk about whatever, and we put the appropriate pictures with those. We didn't get to the organizing. We didn't even get to the reviewing together stage. It's kind of, the older these kids get, the more work it is to gather them up into one place and get them packed up and left. So we were busy getting the kids out. So there is no picture of cup plant. And yes, this is a kiwi vine, which is a beautiful vine, but certainly not one that would be in a prairie like cup plant would be. But walking around in the yard and looking at all of these things that are out there right now, and feeling sorry for the ones that are dry and curled up and their leaves hanging down, it is interesting to look and say the same plant that is just shriveled up, just laying there looking dead, 1 foot away in the shade of the tree that it's growing under, those that are behind there in the shade and a little bit cooler are just fine. If you were to water the ones in front, they would be just fine too. They would open themselves back up. So it's interesting to watch and see what the difference a little bit of shade and a little bit of heat can make. Barb sent this in, the one, actually, there's 2 things that I pulled pictures for questions from the field. Barb sent this in. She said that I saw this monarch chrysalis, and it looks like something's wrong with it. If it's been parasitized, should I put it out of its misery, or should I just let it develop? So you're looking, I hope, at the bad spot, kind of like looking at an apple or banana with a bad spot, isn't it? And when you see that, I mean, this chrysalis should all be emerald green, one solid color all the way through, and it's emerald green, not blue green. Just like us, the color of our skin, pale or red or blotchy, is an indication of other things that are going on in the body. So something is wrong here, and this spot that's developing like this is obviously a spot where all of the portions of the caterpillar. It's just amazing the way that it happens when these things go into pupa. Basically, all of the insides of the caterpillar turn into goo, turn into primordial goo with a covering around them, which is the chrysalis. And the caterpillar, with its last muscle mass, shakes itself around, scrunches itself back and forth, and pushes off its old skin, and underneath is the new skin, which is the chrysalis, but inside is all just goo, which is going to rearrange itself totally into all these organs and whatever. It's like being in the womb twice. So while that's happening, something's not going right in this sector right here. And whatever it is going to end up with a butterfly that's crippled in some way because something didn't develop right. Barb looked it up and sent us a note. She said, I think it's taconid fly, because there are a number of different things that will parasitize caterpillars. Here are these morsels, these delectable morsels out there in the garden, eating. They're just eating machines. They eat constantly. They grow constantly. They're big, fat, squishy, lots of protein in them. That's why birds eat so many of them. Other insects, like parasitic wasps, will lay eggs inside them, and those eggs will develop and eat the caterpillar from the inside out. Terrible thing to think. The tachinid wasp lays an egg which stays with the caterpillar until it goes into chrysalis, and then it eats the stuff inside the chrysalis. Should you put it out of its misery? There we go with one of that questions, like in book club when we read An Immense World. We could read about the sensations that we know insects have. We know they can see, we know that a lot of them can feel, some of them can smell. Do they also have misery? Can't tell that. So are they miserable? I don't know. Is it a good idea to take that particular one out of the system so you have one less parasite? Yeah, except that parasites have their place in the system too. You need to have parasitic, what did we read not too long ago? That probably 90% of living organisms on the earth are parasitic to a certain extent, that many types of organisms. There may be more total numbers of individuals, but the types of organisms that have developed to parasitize others is much greater than those that have grown to be free living. So I don't know. I told her you might want to knock it off because it's not going to turn into anything. It would be of interest if you wanted to let it hatch out in an enclosed container so you could see what hatches out of it. Sonia has done that with a number of them. I don't like to do that. Questions about butterflies? Do you see a couple in our trees? Can you prevent tomato hornworms? John's wondering if you can prevent tomato hornworms. That is a caterpillar, which grows into a great big green rubbery caterpillar. Why they look fake. They're so green and so big. And it emerges once it pupates. It's going to be a hawk moth, one of those moths that hover like a hummingbird does, and we call them hummingbird hawk moths. Can you stop them from getting on it? You can't stop them from putting their eggs on it unless you grow your tomatoes underneath netting small enough that a hawk moth that lays the egg in the first place can't get through. And that's pretty good sized netting, so any of the floating row covers put over your tomato plants to keep flying insects from being able to fly in could help. Otherwise, you really can't stop them. You need to pluck them off as you see them operating. They usually aren't bad or not bad for a number of years in a row. You'll get a bunch of them one year and then you won't see them for a while. We had one woman tell us that she took care of the tomato hornworms in her garden. She had is it a terrier? Yes, some kind of terrier. I've forgotten which kind of terrier that had observed her walking down the row and plucking caterpillars off of the tomato plants. And this terrier understood that that's what it was doing. And so the terrier would walk daily down and see them, jump up and pluck them off of there. Chickens will do that for you too, especially little banty hens. If you've got chickens, you want chickens with small feet so that they don't damage as much, because they'll jump straight up, grab the hornworms and pull them off of there. But you can't really prevent them. Anybody want to guess what these are, since I wasn't able to label anything today? They are appropriate for the time and the date. I don't see any guesses coming in yet. They were taken off of the same plant. This one and this one and this one are all taken off of the same plant and then sliced in half. No guesses. Okay. This is a flower bud. Butterfly bush. No, they're not butterfly bush. This is a little bit larger than life, but not much larger than life. Lima beans. Good point. They do look like lima beans in there, don't they? They're not lima beans. They're not from the vegetable garden. They'd be from the shrub border. It's a decorative shrub. It has bloomed right now in some gardens. In other gardens, it is coming into full bloom. Kind of depends on whether somebody pruned it hard in the springtime. Because if they didn't prune it, it's already bloomed and is forming some seeds. Okay, no other guesses. This is Rose of Sharon, hibiscus, and these are hibiscus. See, the flower petals are still here, and this is all what's going to develop into the pollen, the stamens here, and this is the stigma, the part that'll make the seeds. And after the petals open up and these pollen grains are distributed, this part grows, and usurps all the space. The stigma has, what were the stigmas have fallen off out here, and here's your seeds developing. And don't seeds develop on Rosa Sharon? Boy, like crazy, they develop on Rosa Sharon. Sometimes people have Rosa Sharons that don't bloom, and they say, why doesn't my Rosa Sharon bloom? It never blooms. And what I tell them to do is look for seed pods, because sometimes some Rosa Sharon, it just seems to be a genetic thing, don't flower or don't open their flowers. So if you were to find buds like this, because they say they have buds, but they never open, take a bud and slice through it, you may find that some of them are forming seeds, even though they haven't fully opened. Violets can do the same thing. They can pollinate themselves inside the pod. And if you have a Rosa Sharon like that and it never blooms for you, it's a good one to dig out and maybe put someplace else. Someone asked of the Rosa Sharon that this came from, which is one of our neighbors, and it blooms wonderfully every year. It's a single Rosa Sharon, big white one with a pink center. And it blooms wonderfully. It's just full of flowers when it blooms. But it also sets a lot of seed. If you see it at the right time in the springtime, the lawn underneath it is just full of seedlings of Rosa Sharon coming up. And someone asked, they said, can I take one of those seedlings from June's plant? It's our neighbor. And have one like hers? Maybe, maybe not. They might be like the parent, they might not. You'd want to do a cutting and stick it in the ground and let it root to make sure that you got the same one. Okay, a couple of questions here from some people. Let me go back. Oh my goodness. Someone has blossom end blight on their tomatoes. It's trees, huh? Which I did have some pictures for you. Do I have a prettier picture coming up here so I can talk over a prettier picture? Oh yeah, there's some pretty seeds. It's the seeds of Smilakina or false salmon seal. Teresa asked, what's the best treatment for blossom end blight on tomatoes? Don't have a picture of that right now, but those of you who've grown tomatoes at home have, I'm sure, at some point had a tomato that the bottom end of the tomato, the part not connected to the plant, turned black and flat. That's called blossom end blight, because that was where the blossom was. The plant was, the flower was, the flower was connected to the plant over here, formed its flower. Now it's forming its fruit at what was the base of the flower, and what was the end of the flower, the blossom end, has gone blighted. That happens because for the most part, that happens because the cells in that part of the tomato didn't fill with enough calcium to stiffen. And some books will tell you that's because you need calcium and you should give them extra calcium. But in the better recommendation, and it's in many of the extension bulletins, is that you need to even out the watering on a tomato that shows blossom end blight, because the calcium deficiency that you see at the end is because it was dry one day and wet the next day. Dry one day, or maybe dry 2 days and then wet afterwards. And that flower is forming a fruit fairly quickly, and those cells need the calcium when they need the calcium. So if you can water with putting jugs in the ground, we've shown you before filling a long necked, like a wine bottle with water, then put your hand over the top and jam it into the ground so that it's eking out water a little at a time. Or you can take a milk jug, a plastic milk jug, and put a hole in one corner with a nail. Leave the nail in there, it's just barely a hole, and put the jug firmly down on the ground, pull some mulch around it so that it oozes water out that hole in the bottom. Either that or put a drip hose. So even watering is the best way to prevent blossom end blight. There are also some tomatoes, I think Early Girl is one of them. Some tomato varieties are more prone to it than others, so you might want to switch to different types of tomato variety to grow. I hope that helps.
Janet, I'm
Yeah.
sorry again,
No, go
Janet.
ahead.
Had you heard of adding nitrogen? I read calcium, but my sister's in town and she keeps telling me nitrogen. And I do understand that the watering was a little wacky there for a while. So, anything about nitrogen for that?
No, there's no, I've never read anything that says that you need nitrogen or that would even out any problem with blossom end blight. But it is an hourly and daily thing. If it's not kept moist regularly, that flower that's forming now is forming now. And if there's not enough calcium coming up in the water solution, it's just not going to get there. I can't tell you anything more than that. I don't think. Peony and turtlehead have got, their leaves have turned chlorotic, says Diane. We weren't chlorotic several weeks ago, so I don't think that's a result of the wacky spring. What do you think? Okay, now if I had organized these pictures so I knew where they were, I could take you directly to them. I'm going to zip through some pictures here. There. So this is turtlehead right now, and this is turtlehead dry. This is a turtlehead that's gotten too hot and too dry. And I think the smoke made a difference, because I will see this happen usually a little later on turtlehead, but this chlorosis was not there 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks and 3 weeks ago. It was solid. So the plant has been one of the nutrients that is, what's it called? Movable, mutable. There are some nutrients that plants can actually retract from cells and reabsorb them and use them elsewhere. Nitrogen is one of them. Calcium isn't. And so it could be that this plant has been being starved for a while, maybe by the smoke, maybe by the hours spent folded up in too dry and hot a place, but it's been taking and moving nitrogen out of those cells and moving them elsewhere. You'll often see, and I think I can kind of see on this leaf right here, that the new leaves forming are less chlorotic than the leaves that are already there, and that's because the plant is transferring that nitrogen up here, which I think is pretty amazing. But it can't do it, like magnesium can't do it, iron can't do it, calcium can't move, but nitrogen is one of the things that can move. So yeah, you'll see some chlorosis in leaves. These are other plants too. This is burning bush. Looking at it this time of year, you hold it up to the light and you can see the light spots in the leaves. And looking on the underside of the leaves, you can verify that it's not insects like aphids or mites sucking the underside of the leaf. The leaf is fine, except for the fact that the plant is reabsorbing some of what it put in there in the first place. Let's see. And peonies are showing more of this right now. The botrytis that probably infected weak spots on leaves and stems earlier in the year from buds that got killed or other parts of the plant are now, the botrytis is moving. And once that gets into a main vein, then it starts moving down. Excuse me. It starts moving down the main veins and into the capillary, the vascular system inside the stem, and ends up down in the root, which you don't want to have happen. So if you see any leaves looking like this, you want to take that leaf off of the peony. Hornworms get parasitized. Yeah, actually, pretty much all the caterpillars get parasitized. Probably all the insects out there. Barb is saying you might want to tell people that hornworms get parasitized. I'm trying to scroll my chat. It's not letting me. Come on, scroll the chat. There we go. This hornworm has white egg cases on it. It's essentially dead. Yes, it's an awful death. When I was a kid, so hornworms are big. Like I said, I've seen hornworm caterpillars as big as my index finger. And if they're parasitized, they're literally eggs laid on their back, and they're little oval. They're not pointed oval, but they're oval eggs that stick up along the side. And you go, oh my gosh, it's been parasitized. When I was a kid, in the corner bookcase in my parents' where they kept all the books, there was a book, a set of books called the Book of Knowledge, and the set on insects, the book that had insects in it, had in it a page of a parasitized hornworm and of the parasites emerging from the shell, the hollow husk, the eaten out husk of the hornworm. And I would go and sit in that corner and pull out that book and open to that page with this morbid curiosity about, I couldn't stand to look at it, but I had to look at this awful thing that could happen. I understood. I'd read the pages. I think I was probably 7 or 8. I'd read the pages and I understood what happened. But it is an awful thing. And yeah, it's essentially dead, but they will eat. That's the whole idea. They will keep eating until they die. Do you need to remove the baby Rosa Sharons from the lawn? No, generally if you mow Rosa Sharon and most of the woody plants, you mow them down regularly like we do the lawn, and you're going to kill it off. some things will survive. I've seen mulberries survive repeated mowings in the lawn, but eventually they do die. But not Rosa Sharons don't seem to be a problem. It just looks really weird, and they will in the case of one lawn in Grosse Pointe where I used to take a picture. I should find those pictures every year. If you're trying to get grass to grow there, all of those Rosa Sharon broad leaves that are coming up can shade out the grass and make the grass more patchy there. So you would want to mow them off early and get some grass seeds started in there. Okay. Whoa. Exactly what your turtle head looks like. Well, good. I'm glad that I'll have one picture that fits the evening here. John wants to know, how do you add calcium? You can add calcium to the soil to counter the effects of not enough calcium for the plant if you have a calcium deficiency in the soil. And you can add calcium with, it's called calcium carbonate. Lime is calcium carbonate, and that's why people lime the soil, is to put calcium into the soil. The thing is that in Michigan, actually pretty much the whole Midwest, and certainly definitely the whole Great Lakes area, we have a ton of calcium in the soil already. There is no need to add calcium. There's only the need to make the conditions right to release the calcium. And steady water does that, an active biome in the soil, a lot of organic things working in the soil make it work. But there's not much way to bring in calcium that's already soluble and give it to plants. Somebody did tell me something about crushing up eggshells, and you can get a little bit of soluble calcium that way, but not enough to make a big difference. Okay. Uh-oh. While I was trying to change the picture, I scrolled my chat up, so I don't know what the next questions are.
Hi, Janet.
Hi there. Go ahead.
I don't know how to do the bottom. I'm on my phone, and I'm up north in Hale at my sister's place. It's beautiful. There are white pines that I swear are 200 feet high.
Oh, I believe. Aren't they gorgeous? There's a place. It's called Stuyvesant Pines, I think. It's in the top of so if that's the Upper Peninsula up here, and this is the Keweenaw Peninsula, right at the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula, east out of Copper Harbor, is Stuyvesant Pines, with pines that have not been touched. They are the original pines that were there and were didn't get logged for one reason or another. And we took people on a walk through them. We'll have to do it again because they're awesome. They're totally awesome. Yeah.
It's like being in heaven. My sister's property, they left all the white pines, and it's just like being in, I don't know, it's amazing. I took some pictures. But I have a question. She's got one along the walkway, and the roots are up above it, and I'm afraid she's going to trip on them. So you know how the roots are like in the lawn?
Yeah.
And I told her to put mulch in between those roots. You don't want to cover them, right, and make it smooth there. You want to just make it flat.
You can cover them. That's not going to hurt them. Yeah, it's not going to hurt them to cover them. And that's what you have to do, is build up a ramp up and over them, or a step up over them. Because cutting them, if they're large enough like that and near the surface, they're probably some of the main roots. And
I wouldn't cut them. I would just cover them.
Yeah, cover them is the thing to do. But this is one of those balancing acts that you got a person and their safety versus, do I keep this tree? If you can make the path go around it or up over it,
This tree is huge. It's one of the. They're all like right up against the house. I don't.
Try to take a couple pictures of them for us. And We'll introduce them to people. I'll bring back those pictures from Stuyvesant Pines, and we'll look at it from there.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So yeah, lime is and we're often told to lime the soil. Back to calcium. We're often told to lime the soil, and that's much more. If you live next to a farm, agricultural land, because they repeatedly add a lot of urea, the water-soluble form of nitrogen, that can actually cause the soil to go into a low pH, nutrients unavailable state. And so they will lime agricultural soil fairly often to make up for all of the urea that they use. But doesn't apply in normal garden soils. Okay, back to where we are here. Okay, Deb, I see your question about, but I'm not sure which question you're talking about. Where did it go? How should we treat? Okay, yeah, it's Deb is asking how should we treat this issue, and the issue might be blossom end blight. You don't have, once you see it, you can't do anything about it. Those cells were, those embryonic cells were wrong to begin with, and you can't fix that. But the tomato is edible. I mean, just cut that part off. The rest of it is okay, but not much else you can do. Okay, let's see what else we got here. I have this big pointer so I can point things to you. Soil. So okay, trees found in liquid calcium just for blossom end rot. Okay, and you need to make sure that it's on there when the flower is forming a fruit. I mean, this is before you start seeing a red fruit on there that this happens. There you go. And Barb's already thought of pulverizing the eggshells. Yeah, I put them in a mortar and pestle and grind them up. John is wondering, where is Waterville? It's in the lovely southern part of Toledo. It's a beautiful area along the river. I have tomatoes growing in a backyard raised bed and in a community garden plot 5 minutes from home. Judith, you are a glutton for punishment. But you don't have enough sun to have a good garden. So both sets were started together and are growing in the same super coil, equal parts soil, compost, and sand that she bought this year. The two differences in their culture is that the backyard tomatoes had daily, brief overhead watering last month, and clover growing near them got irrigated, and they got 6 to 7 hours of sunlight per day. The other tomatoes are generally watered at their base and have full day sunlight. But the backyard tomato leaves are still green, whereas the other leaves have small brown and yellow spots, especially toward the bottom of the plants. Fruit on both plants is maturing apparently healthy so far. What's going on, and is it important to do something about it? If they are the same variety of tomato, Judith, and you can't see if you said you have tomatoes, but it doesn't say whether they're the same. If they're the same variety of tomatoes and one of them has the brown spots and the other doesn't, then there may be a source of infection for one of the many leaf spots that tomatoes get. Tomatoes have, like most of the big agricultural crops, have a whole book of all the things that can happen to them. They've got at least 4 fungus diseases that can cause spots on the leaves, and some viral diseases. And some varieties are much more susceptible than others. It's why we buy tomatoes that the tag will say VFNT sometimes. Sometimes it'll say just V, or just T, or just N and T. That means virus, fusarium, nematodes, and tobacco mosaic virus. Verticillium, which is a fungus. VFNT, verticillium, fusarium. Those are 2 funguses that get into tomatoes and can ruin the leaves. N for nematodes, which get in through the roots and the base of the plant and are a different class of parasite entirely. And tobacco mosaic virus, which is a virus that tomatoes can get. And any of those, once they enter the leaf, and all it would take is for the leaf variety to be susceptible, or something to have happened to that leaf that it got a little bit weak, maybe while it was growing, maybe the full day sunlight, it was too hot at some point in the time. But there is a difference there, and so it's infected. You can take off the infected leaves. That's what it's most often suggested that you do. And if you have a tomato plant that has a lot of infected leaves or shows a real propensity toward being infected, make sure that you take the leaves off down toward the bottom and the inside of the plant, in order to let air flow better, because the more that the air flows, the worse the less chance the fungus has to actually get started growing. Yeah. And Teresa's suggesting early blight, which is one of the funguses. And early blight is the blight that was associated with the tomato famine in Ireland. Tomatoes and potatoes are in the same family and they get the same disease, and early blight can be devastating to a crop. Sometimes you still get tomatoes just fine because they get a little bit infected, but not a lot. But sometimes it'll just wipe out most of the leaves on the plant over a period of time. Okay, since I don't have an organization, I don't know where these things are. Weevil damage is pretty rampant in this particular garden where Steve was taking the picture. Weevils will eat from the edge of the leaf in, and they make these notches where they just keep enlarging the area. Weevils, especially black vine weevil and strawberry root weevil, can eat a lot of different kinds of plants. And if you see a lot of this going on your plants this time of year, this is also the time of year that those weevils that are doing this damage are laying eggs in the ground next to them. And shortly, within the next couple of weeks, those eggs are going to start hatching. And that's the most propitious time to kill weevils, is in the soil when they're just little guys. And that's a good reason for, if you see a lot of this kind of damage going on, to get out your Arbico Organics or your other biological control catalog and look up beneficial nematodes and order the nematodes for weevils and put them in the ground, put the powder on the ground and water it in really well and keep that area moist. And these guys will hatch out and seek weevils. And they do to the weevils what we're talking about, these various parasites do to caterpillars that are going to eat them from the inside out. And that's okay with me when weevils do as much damage as they do. I'm seeing a lot of notching. I did take a picture of it. I'm now thinking of all kinds of pictures I could have taken while I was wandering around. I'm seeing notches on a lot of the leaves of one portion of our swamp milkweed area. But it's not this irregular notching. They're quite circular notches everywhere. It's we've got a heavy brood of leafcutter bees going on out there, and they're just slicing sections. Some of the leaves have less leaf left than has been taken out, and I think that's pretty exciting. It's a lot of leafcutter bees at work out there. Okay. All right. I don't know why my chat keeps rolling itself down. If you've got a question in chat and I haven't seen it, you can definitely raise your hand, because my chat keeps rolling itself down. Awesome. Is that a tomato question? Therese says her tomatoes are in potting soil, and she thought she needed to add calcium and lime. Yeah, in a potting soil, you don't have anything. And so you will be adding a fertilizer of some kind, and most of those fertilizers have some calcium in them. But yeah, if you don't have any calcium in the fertilizer, you're up a creek. There is some calcium in even in potting mixes, because there is some calcium in the bark that they use in there, but not a lot of calcium. Estivant pines, that's it, not stuyvesant, estivant. Oh yeah, what do you do about the plants being chlorotic? This time of year, you really don't do much of anything. The plants are not going to move nitrogen back into cells that they have sacrificed to feed their future foliage. You can make sure that the plant stays well watered so that all the new foliage that it's still growing, and the flowers, like on turtlehead, they're not going to bloom yet, but the flowers are at more even growth. So you might want to even your watering out. But in our garden, for instance, where I shouldn't be growing turtlehead, I should not be growing turtlehead in our garden. It's a dry, sandy garden. Turtlehead doesn't belong in dry soil, period, let alone dry, sandy soil. But we're really attached to turtlehead, and it came with us from our old house. So, and for whatever reason, it has proliferated out there. There's a big patch of it, two places where there's a big patch of it. And every year at this time, as it's standing there with its leaves hanging down and looking all chlorotic, I ask it, why did you come here? But it comes back every year, so I'm not going to argue with it, not until I think of something else to put in there. Tomatoes in the Judith's saying the tomatoes in the community garden are pretty consistently all affected with this leaf spot. Leaf pruned aggressively since seeing the spotting. Well, good, then that's going to try to keep it under control. You might then have a neighbor. In community gardens, that was a problem that I found with community gardens, is you can't stop other people from like growing squash without controlling squash bugs. And there you are with your squash 3 feet away from their squash, and you're going to get their squash bugs because they're not over picking the leaves off that have the squash eggs on them. So somebody might have a very susceptible variety of it, and you've got to, I shouldn't be using the word typhoid Mary after what I heard about typhoid Mary recently. Mm-hmm. But having somebody around that's got the bug, the infectious material, is going to end up spreading itself around. When I heard about typhoid Mary, before I leave the verticillium wilt and the contagious plants in your neighbor's community garden, typhoid Mary they actually arrested her, kicking and screaming, and took her to a psychiatric facility where they kept her locked away because they'd identified her as the source of some typhus infections. I mean, they actually took this. Anyway, I shouldn't say typhoid Mary anymore like that. All right, back to where we're going. Another problem that you're seeing right now, this is a bacterial blight on monkshood. Delphinium gets the same one. And all of the buttercups most of the buttercups are resistant to it. But if you see this kind of thing, this is a bacterial systemic infection. It's usually in the whole plant. You need to cut that whole stem out. And if you're seeing this in members of that family, the monkshood, delphinium, buttercup family, then it's a good idea to mark that plant for this fall, to dig it up, divide the roots, take a look at them, and only replant roots that don't have any soft and discolored spots in them. The roots you'll find tubers on the roots on monkshood, and you just want to plant those tubers in a place that hasn't grown monkshood for a while, because once you see it like this, you can be pretty well rest assured that it has made its way up or down the stem already and is in the roots and is going to reinfect itself the next year. It's not going to go away, and bacterial infections are really hard to control. We can't I don't know of any way that you can buy streptomycin or erythromycin, the antibacterial agents that we have, and spray them on plants anymore. You used to be able to do that, but they don't anymore, for good reason. They don't want to make things resistant to stuff. Diane sent in her smoke, her air quality alerts from last week when we had all of the smoke from the wildflowers so heavily in the air here, just to point out that we were complaining about Detroit. She said, but look at us. We were 47 points higher than you on the scale. Any of those numbers are terrible. Even this 139, we should be down in the 20 or 30. I mean, there should be a little bit of something in the air, but not a lot of stuff. Terrible thing to see. What's blooming now, people have asked. I consider the last week of July to be Shasta daisy and purple accompaniment time. Shasta daisy and liatris. Shasta daisy and veronica. Shasta daisy and the rebloom on salvia. I don't know what it is, but this last week of the year, I think if you don't have those in your garden, then you're missing out on color that you can have in a perennial garden. And I try to grow the types of Shasta daisies that rebloom vigorously. Some of them do, some of them don't. And there are a lot of varieties that are going to. I'm thinking that one of them is called Broadway Lights. Go ahead, Judith, you got a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another produce question. A couple of weeks ago, I was complaining about chlorotic eggplants and peppers, and you suggested getting liquid fertilizer,
Like
which
an
in my
iron.
own slow way, I just finally got, and apparently they won't be effective anyway. But in looking through Amazon, I came across not only Neptune's 321 fertilizer, but something called Farmer's Secret or Farmer's Choice, which was 2-15-15. So very, very different formulations.
Sure.
And I'm wondering what chlorotic produce actually needs.
Well, if you have the chlorotic, the eggplants and peppers are what are
Yeah.
chlorotic for you. Those have got a lot of growing still to do. What you're doing when you're adding a liquid nitrogen for them is you're giving them the chance to have the new growth fully fed, fully stocked with the nitrogen that it needs. You're not going to be able to fix the plants, the leaves that are already chlorotic, and on perennials like turtlehead that have finished their growth, it's not going to fix that leaf. That leaf is as it is, but your tomatoes and peppers should have a whole lot more growing to be doing, and that's going to help the new growth that's coming out. I would go with the Neptunes. I would go with something that's heavier in nitrogen. That first
Actually, no, it's 2-3-1. So they're both kind of low in nitrogen.
well, not low. 2% nitrogen is pretty good, but
okay.
but 2-15-15 is real heavy on the nitrogen and phosphorus, and those aren't the chemicals that you'd want to be thinking about using.
Okay, great. That's what the Neptunes is what I got. So good guess.
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Diane has had time to look at what the tomato guru says. Okay, so Craig the hoolier, is keeping tomato plants dry when watering. So many foliage diseases. Yeah, drip irrigate tomatoes, or they water and then fan them if they're growing them in greenhouses, which a lot of those tomatoes that we're buying now at the store, they're grown in greenhouses even year round, because they can control things better. So they'll water and then they'll turn the fan system on even heavier, just trying to keep the leaves from spreading those fungus. Okay. Oh, Hartwick Pines. Hartwick Pines, is that up by Gaylord Grayling area, Suzanne? Because I think we stopped there one time, but I don't remember being as impressed with that but it's a virgin forest. We should go with that. Anything. All right. Should you trim off the branches of the tomato that have been eaten by hornworms? No. There's the hornworms aren't giving the plant any. They aren't transferring any contagion to the plant. They're just destroying the leaves. If there's not much of the leaf left, it doesn't make much sense to keep it and clip it off. But if they've only just been chewing on part of the leaf, it's no big deal. Okay, back to colors here. And reds and oranges. So this is the place for annuals in this garden is up front. So begonias. But back there is crocosmia. There's no color like crocosmia, and nothing better for hummingbirds, for that brilliant red-orange color. There's some here on this side of the yard too. This is the crocosmia time. Some people say, how do you remember when things bloom? If you have kind of a companion picture in your mind of when they bloom, then you can probably pick out when they bloom. That, oh yeah, it's way past crabapple time, or that's way past the first roses time. You can figure those things out from there. But crocosmia is definitely one of my favorite plants. Not for dry sandy soil. It belongs in a better soil. In a better soil, this one is a rather heavy clay loam. Break it up and it's got everything you need in it. And that clay loam, that crocosmia will multiply rapidly. In our area in Michigan, so we're zone 6 now. Call it 6/5, depending on if you get the actual cold winters that sometimes still come in. Crocosmia will, every 3 or 4 years, it'll have the conditions in winter that kill it back. And so a clump this big might come back up as just 3 stalks, and then it builds back up again, and then but further south, and warmer, more reliably warm weather, it becomes a bit of a thug. There's so much of it around. This is the time of year when walking into the shade is so wonderful. Someone asked about planting a Weigelia. I've got some pictures, maybe too many pictures of that coming up here. And I always wonder, why are people so intent on flowers in a shady area when in nature, white flowers, white and lilac here, white flowers are the biggie, because in the shade, those are what stand out for the insects that pollinate it. And those flowers are there to get pollinated. I mean, that's the purpose of the flower. So, why would you be so bent on getting things that have other colors in there? I'm not sure. I was describing, this was weeks ago, when we just found the pictures of some of the logs, trunks of tree trunks that a friend of ours, who is now long retired, but he would cut these trees that had galls on them, gross, strange kind of gross. There's one on a cedar, an arborvitae. He would let them grow on his wooded property until they got to a certain size. They were never going to be as big as other trees because they're devoting a lot of energy to growing the gall rather than the tree. But he would let them grow, and then eventually he would cut them right off at ground level, treat this like lumber, first take the bark off of it, and then cure it just like lumber and sell them as decorative pieces. And these are, I think these are 15, almost 20 years old in this garden, and are still looking pretty good. So if you've got a weird looking tree in your yard and you think, well, you might want to consider using it for something, using it for art. Teresa's growing a sacrificial tomato in order to have the hawk moths on it. And she takes the caterpillars off the good plant and moves them over to the other plant. We are crazy people, don't you think? We are crazy people. What are you doing, Teresa? I'm relocating hawk moths. Yep. And what can you replace your boxwoods with? John, you must have your boxwoods looking bad. I took out the bad looking boxwood picture in here. Although there were boxwoods in here. lots of boxwoods that this client is taking out. I'm not working for the client anymore, but I keep in touch sometimes with what they're doing. They're taking them on and replacing them with a holly. There are Japanese hollies, Ilex crenata varieties. Also, there's a native one, Ilex vomitoria is its name, and of course inkberry they call it because it's got black berries on that holly. Those are appearance-wise, and the fact that they have small leaves so you can keep them pruned in a shape, they're similar to boxwoods, but they are unfortunately eaten by deer. So if you're growing boxwoods because the deer don't eat them, you're not going to save yourself putting in holly. And then your options are real limited to deciduous plants like spirea and barberry, which I'd rather people didn't put barberry in at all. I'm glad your soap took care of it. Soap and timing, Teresa's. Soap and timing took the boxwood tree moth. I always have to, it's called the box tree moth. It comes on our boxwood shrubs. The box tree moth, if you can get it as the new hatch comes out, there can be 2 or even 3 generations a year, depending on the weather and what part of the country you're in. They're not native, but they're moving through the country. If you can spray them with something that kills them, including just soap, and Teresa's been using ivory soap, which we used here. If your timing is right, you can keep them from destroying your boxwoods. And Judith is sharing that the horticulturalist at Massachusetts Horticultural Society, she's pruning her tomatoes to one sturdy stem and cut the leaves gradually up so that they're 18 inches clear. Yes, that's a good thing to do. Everything moves through it. Although I have been told by other people, you don't need to do that. And John, who talked to us about growing on straw bales, has said that you really don't need to do that in most cases when you're growing them on straw bales. Teresa says, why not plant barberry in place of the boxwoods? Barberry is such an invasive plant, and it's such a nasty plant for gardeners to work around. The dwarf ones, Crimson Pygmy is a red leaf dwarf one. Something Lemon is a little dwarf yellow one. And they're very pretty, and they'll stay small, and they could stay, even at full size, they could pretend that they're a boxwood. All the rest of them, there's one that people like a lot that has like a 3 color on the leaf. It has some pink, some white, and some red. Gaiety, no, not Gaiety. Anyway, there is one that, people like it, and they want to keep it cut, but it wants to be 6 feet tall, and everybody wants it to keep it boxwood size. And I don't like seeing gardeners have to work around those thorns, especially when you cut them off and the stuff that falls dries up and those thorns get in your fingers again. So they're very invasive. We had barberry here at this property, for instance, when we moved in. And remember, I've said it's dry and sandy. Barberry likes dry soil. I took the boxwoods out, got rid of them the first year before I even planted any of our desirable plants. I said, the boxwoods are out. I still have boxwood seedlings coming up in various places in the yard. And that's what they do in nature. There was a place that we visited up on the west side of Michigan, up past wherever the ferries pull out of, going up toward the Glen Arbor area. And we went for walking in the woods, and except for the paths, which were heavily traveled and so they were clear, the rest of the understory of the woods was all barberry. I would not want to be lost in there at night and try to find your way out. Barberry's solid through that area. So if it's dry and sandy, they can be really invasive plants. Judy, I was talking about Estevant pines. I was calling them Stuyvesant. I got the last part of the word right. Estevant pines. And it is the Michigan Nature Society that arranged to take over the land, and they run it. And it is beautiful. It's not a far walk as some walks go, and you can drive to a place where you can park and walk into the pines out east of Copper Harbor. So good. It's a good trip. Take that. Carol says her barberry is in her wooded area, and she's never planted barberry. Yeah, it does work its way around. I've seen robins Yeah, and I think it's starvation food. In the spring, eating the berries that are still left on barberry, so the seed would move around that way. But for the most part, they don't even feed many animals here. They're just not one of our plants that have brought much from other continents to North America. Right now, the Thalictrum rashabruninum, named for the Rashabrunin, it's a family. It's called lavender mist meadowrue and can be easily 6 feet tall, even taller than that, in a moist garden in the shade. So if you did want something other than white flowers, like the snakeweed or fairy candle that you see behind it, they're very good for late summer bloom, but it needs to be a moist garden. A dry garden, I've put lavender mist meadowrue into a dry, shady garden, and I have 3 foot tall plants with not nearly as much flower on them as ones that get to be full size. And I've had people say, well, I've got lots of trees in my yard. I said, well, yeah, you've got dense shade back there underneath all your maples and stuff, Julie. But out here underneath this hackberry that's pruned up to the first branch is about 30 feet up, for the most part, you consider this area sun. And so you can have very different areas within one yard. You just need to watch, as Judith was doing with her tomatoes, how many hours of sun they get a day. And either you can watch the space all day long and say, are you still in the sun? Are you still in the sun? Are you still in the sun? Or you can go stand in the space and face south and look to the sky and follow the sun. Say, it must come up over there in the east, and I've got trees limbs between me and it. But here, right about noon, I can see the sky, and I can see the sky all the way down to the west. So I have half the day sun here, and that's going to be 6 hours in the summertime. So you can stand and add up the light, or you can watch it. But and there is something that somebody gave me once, but I never quite got around to trying it. There's a kit you can buy that you can put a special paper out on sticks in the garden, and it will register for you how much light it received during the day. I never did get around to using it. Yes, barberry has been added to the list in Michigan. I think that was that list was proposed for barberry and no, I forgot. I know barberry was on the list, but it was proposed. I don't know whether that got passed. They always have problems passing them because, and if it is passed, it was for 2028 was the year that we begin not being able to sell them, because they need to leave time for those growers who have them in the pipeline to be able to turn over their property or get rid of it one way or another. And it's outlawed in Ohio. I'm pretty sure it's outlawed in Massachusetts, along with burning bush and some other problem plants. Yes, that's right. Calorie pear, Bradford pears, Jocelyn, were on the list. And I'm glad. What an awful plant. Gosh, whole fields full of calorie pears. Had a question about Weigelia, and I want your help on this one too. So here's the Weigelia that grows by my garage door. I have at various times shown you this Weigelia because when we moved in, I went, oh no, it's ridiculous. There's not enough room for the Weigelia there. It's a space that's about 4 foot by 3 foot. And I cut it down, meaning to dig it out and move it. Well, I never got around to digging it out and moving it, and now I don't know where I would move it to. So I let it grow because the hummingbird reliably comes by in the morning and visits this plant. And the Carolina wren likes to sit in it in the late fall when it starts getting cold. I think there's heat leaking out of the garage. So we leave it there. But this is the full-size Weigelia you're looking at. So there's the garage door. That's up to 7 feet, some inches tall. So it's about 8 feet by 10 feet across. That's the full-size Weigelia. There are dwarf ones that stay more like 3 or 4 feet. But even the dwarf ones, the habit is the same. So this is, you call it a round plant. It's as wide as it is tall, but it's irregularly round. It's tall here, then shorter, then tall, then shorter. So Weigelia has that habit even when it's a small plant. Someone asked about a friend, what should you tell a friend? I think it was Diane. She said, what should I tell a friend that they've got mostly shade and she wants to have a pretty plant and she's sold on the Weigelia and wants to put one out there? What would you tell them? So I went looking through, we have quite an extensive catalog of pictures that we've taken over all of these decades. And sometimes we're able to find things pretty quickly, but Weigelia in the shade. have I deliberately taken pictures of Weigelia in the shade to show what it looks like? I'm not sure, but I can look at clients that I know we had Weigelia and take a look. So here, for instance, is a Weigelia. This is a dwarf Weigelia at the back of Judith's garden here. Different Judith. And it's very shady. It has, let's see, 2.5 hours of full sun, kind of like you see it here. And then between the house and a redbud tree over here, it's shaded. And what we've got is, rather than a rounded out plant because it's in competition and it doesn't have enough light, it's really just one stalk coming up here. And basically it had a few flowers low down on the plant early in the year. So here you're seeing one of the dwarfs. This one's Java Red, and it is that same irregular rounded look. So the first thing I tell people about Weigelia in the shade is that it's not going to be a dense plant, and it is going to look like it's got straws sticking out of it. I mean, it's just their habit, and they bloom really well that way. So if you want somebody to have a Weigelia and they're going to put it in a place at the front of the house or someplace that's seen regularly and importantly, then they're going to need to be able to prune. And pruning Weigelia isn't an easy task, because you want to let it bloom in the spring and then prune it properly so that you get some of the repeat bloom later on in the year. This one we prune properly so that it's going to bloom in the spring. All of these, this is the spring bloom, and this is in part shade, not full shade. So this has got about 5 hours of sun a day. It's going to bloom here, and after this bloom is done, these pieces, like this piece right here, that are growing without any flower buds on them, those are going to extend themselves further up, and they'll get some flowers on them, not as heavy as the first time. And the way that you prune it is you prune it so that it's going to bloom in the spring, and you have pruned some branches way down here so that this new growth, as it comes up after the first bloom, fills in the area of that same space. And that's tricky to do. It's not low-level pruning jobs. This is the forgot the name. All right, somebody knows because it's out there. Rarely does it do as well as this. This is the tricolor dwarf Weigelia. The leaf has white and pink on it. It blooms with pink flowers. I'm sorry, I've completely forgotten it. Most places it doesn't fill in as well as this. This fills in this well because about every 2 years we cut it all the way down to nothing and let it grow back again. Or we did back when I was taking care of this garden. So there are differences with the Weigelia and how it looks. Ginger didn't. This is a Weigelia. It's not a full-size Weigelia. This is one of the dwarf ones. I'm sorry, I should have looked up names of things and I didn't. Variety names will escape me on a regular basis if I don't use them all the time. But she did prune it for a couple of years, and she said, what can I do about it? I said, well, we need to prune out the dead because it's a fast-growing plant that builds up dead wood, and we need to get some of that out of there. She said, well, then let's do that. And so now it looks like this, which is not exactly your ideal plant to have right by the front of the house. So I would tell people who are going to want to put Weigelia in the shade, and if they want to put it as a foundation plant, that it's not going to be your most attractive plant. And in the shade, so here we are in the shade. I said, I know where I got them. These were here and are still there, to my knowledge, at my clients on the side of the house where she never is. Julie is just never over there. But some landscaper back would never put them in. There are 3 of them. There is one raggedy one back here, one here, one here. Those are Weigelia. They're in a place where between the big trees behind them, which are on the south side, and the house, there's only direct sun is for about an hour and a half late in the day. And what we've got is kind of distorted, an irregular form, just growing where it can grow. And I tried to get these in a time when I would be able to see the flowers on them or the seed pods forming. But it turns out I would never go over there very much. It wasn't a part of the garden that we had to deal with. I would cut out the weeds that were coming up in it. There. So there's a weed tree coming up in here. Mulberries and hackberries would come up in them. I would take those out, but there wasn't much that could be done with it. And Julie said, don't worry about it. Just let the forsythia and the Weigelia sit there. So they're not going to bloom very much, and they're not going to be very neat plants in the shade. And they do build up the dead wood. So here's where I got started with this one. It had all that deadwood that had to come out because, like gingers, it built up a lot of deadwood. So did the others. And that's not the kind of pruning you want to have people do. So tell them that it'll be a high maintenance plant for them. If you don't prune it at all, it just they keep growing up, and then they get real ragged in the middle. Okay. I did though think that if a garden with this person who wants to do Weigelia, because she wants colored flowers and she's in the shade, you might push her toward clethra. The dwarf clethras that have pink flowers. No, I should remember those names too. Hummingbird is one of them, and another one is, but they have pink flowers rather than white. They bloom in the summer, and as long as it's moist there, they're happy. They belong in the shade. You can see how dark green this one is, and it's in a lot of shade in this garden. So try and introduce them to clethra and see how that works. Okay, I see a poison ivy and jewelweed discussion going on here. My Monet, thank you, Chris. Yes, My Monet Weigelia is the one with the tricolor leaf. I haven't seen Rainbow Sensation, but probably the same kind of thing. It's banned in Michigan. It's barberry. Okay, jewelweed. It's not on the list of it. Well, jewelweed is a native plant, so it can't really be on the list of invasive plants. I mean, there are invasive natives, but they're not going to do legislation to ban a native plant, because how would we do that? It takes over the woods. If you let other things grow with it or introduce other things, you can have a good mix of stuff with jewelweed. And jewelweed is, the sap from it can soothe the itch of poison ivy. It doesn't clear it up, but it can soothe the itch. So the folklore is that if you get into poison ivy, look around, there might be some jewelweed close by that you can use. It's an impatiens. It's our native impatiens capensis is jewelweed. Has a little yellow flower on it that when you see it, you'll know that it's an impatiens. And if you see the seed pod, it'll do the same thing the other impatiens do, that it pops open when you press on it a little bit. But it's an annual, comes every year from seed. I couldn't resist putting this in while I was looking for other things. This is how it works with us. I'm going through our catalog and looking for Weigelia, or I'm looking for leaf spot, or I'm looking for botrytis, or I'm looking for whatever. I'll be looking through and go, well, we never put down in the log that this is where the dead man's fingers are. And this probably was the best example. This is a type of fungus mushroom called dead man's fingers, and it's associated, almost entirely associated, with rotting major wood on plants. So not the little tiny mushrooms, little caps that come up that are decaying the little tiny roots, but the main roots will be decayed by dead man's fingers. And they're called dead man's fingers because, I mean, does that not look like someone coming up out of the soil? Mildred, whose garden this is, told me, she said, that's fascinating, but get them out of there, get them out of there. I can't stand the thought of something coming up out of the ground at me. I mean, they're fingers. Okay, all right, so this is the place where the Weigelia was going to go, and I got to thinking that clethra would be a good thing there. You could probably put in one clethra and let it grow, because it'll spread by, when it's happy, it'll spread by suckers. Or you could put in 3 clethras and just call them done. But color-wise, maybe if this person is not a gardener, Diane, then they don't need to be getting a plant that needs to be pruned a lot. Why did I put more Weigelia back in? I don't know. Okay, back to walking the garden. Walk the garden this time of year. Try to water what needs watering. It's after 8 o'clock, and I thought I didn't have enough even for a few minutes. For those of you who asked, we did get a couple people asking what's up with Sonia and the tree in her property line. She's been making a rag rug and watching out the back windows to watch the construction going on. And as the construction goes on, this is the first floor. This man is standing on the first floor of this new house going in. So that first floor is 4 feet, maybe 5 feet above the old grade. And Sonia and Cam are watching for where the windows are, because here's their tree that they're trying to protect, and a new tree that's growing in. An arborist did come out. Sonia was pleased with talking to the arborist. He did know what he was doing. And they did take off the branches and made it an espalier, so it's flat on that side. And they talked about keeping it that way, because keeping it that way is going to be important. And depending on whether or not they have a good relationship with the new people who move in, they're going to have to stand here between Sonia's fence, and then it's clearly Sonia's fence, as well as about 5 inches on that side, and their foundation, that's where you'll have to be to do the pruning to keep those branches from scraping on that house. So it's not going to be an easy situation to deal with. But trees are not easy anyway. I'll wind up with this one. I was out with Steve in the boat. I don't fish. I just kind of ride along and talk with him. Sometimes I take the net and scoop things up for him. But I was looking at this double-topped spruce. I'm thinking how often people have trees on their property that they don't realize are dangerous trees. This double top forms when at some point something happened and the top of the tree died back and two side branches raced each other and became co-dominant, equally high. Now, every time the wind blows and this whole thing sways around, this is basically a whole tree with no branches on the inside facing the other tree, facing the other part of the top of the tree. And the weight is all going to be on one side, and the torque is going to be to twist those two away from each other. And because they were side branches, they're not the top of the tree. They're not connected to the tree to be able to take torque in that direction. So one or the other of these, or maybe both, is going to split off of there. And you need to look and see on something like that, given the direction of the wind and where the tree is in relation to your house, is that going to end up on my house? It might not look big, but it's big and it's heavy and it's going to hit your house or a neighbor's house. So go out and enjoy the rest of the of July, the dog days, because it's going to start cooling off here the second and third week in August, and the goldenrod that's just started will be in full bloom. It's a big blue stem and goldenrod there. And I will leave you with that, and I won't even look through the chat until I'm done signing off here. Those of you who are in book club, I apologize that we ran 2 book clubs on Monday and Tuesday because we messed up the link. The book club video recording is posted if you wanted to see what others said about that book and about the new book. You have to go to our website to get it. We'll send out, as soon as I can figure out how to do it, I'll send out an email that says here's what book club was. But I had to splice together two different meetings, so I'm sure it's going to be a little bit jumpy, but I wanted to get everybody's opinion in there.
Great book. Everybody should read that book.
It was fun. It was a fun book. Thanks.
I'm only at the beginning, but.
Oh, are you reading the new one already? You're reading.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't put it down. I could not.
I love it.
What are the books?
The Forbidden Garden is the book that Margie's just started reading. It's the book that we'll talk about at our August 17th book club meeting.
Yeah, everybody should join that book club. It's a great time.
It's fun. We just talk. I don't have to.
I read a lot. I haven't read so many books ever in a long time.
Did your grandson give you back the junior?
No, I'm up north, but no, not yet.
Okay.
I kept track of.
We'll be interested to hear what he said.
I will. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all for
Good
coming.
night.
Tell some people about it. We'll be back next Friday. Normally, next Friday there would not be a free-for-all because the first Saturday of the month we've been doing a webinar, but our speaker was not available that first. So we do have a free-for-all Friday next Friday, July 31st, and our webinar is on August 8th. So we'll see you at one or both of those. Thank you for being here.